Hey folks, it's Glenn from Back Glenn's Fish. It's about 5 to 7 on Sunday morning. I'm on my way to work again today. Beautiful morning, fairly cold. Let's show you what I'm walking on. Look at that for frost. Normally where I'm walking here we would see some bunny rabbits out grazing and foraging, but I think it's all a bit much for them today. Anyway, I've got to get to work. I will see you on the other side. I'm going to start today's review with what work I've just completed. It's actually Friday at the moment. I'm not filming on a Sunday night as I have been. I've finally got into the blue otter and hongy tank that we've been referencing the last couple of weeks, and got a good amount of result from that. I will one day do a standalone video on how I break down a tank when I'm harvesting, but basically I go pretty hard and fast. Everything comes out of the tank, all the structure, the filters are getting a clean, the fish are going into buckets and are being graded constantly, and that's because I don't vent sex and struggle with that. I'm just reviewing each time what I believe to be the gender ratio and deciding whether I need to pull a male or two out, etc. And sometimes it's a good time to be adding back some juveniles just to build a colony out. The stack of pipes in front there, when I carefully tip that into a net, we got a heap of the female hongy that I suspected were holding, and that ended up being, I think, 6 fish in total, and we've got the proceeds of that here. The tub on the left being eggs, heads and tails. Sort of going to do some tumbling on these, but three fish I think in total there. Some of the smaller females, but we've got a decent number of eggs nonetheless. On the right we had some that were fully formed, and you know, poor old mum spat out into the net gladly just to get a rest, I believe. They're probably 30 or so little bubbies in here in total. Oh, we've got some eggs to deal with. That's annoying. Okay, more eggs into the other side, and there was one little fish in here that was, there we go, one that had obviously been spat in the tank a time ago and has survived for at least a couple of weeks to get a little bit further along. The white tub here is 2 of the blue otter females that we saw on camera, 2 mouthfuls. I suspect that there was about 5 to 6 days difference between the mating times on those 2 fish, so we've got a lot of these eggs are almost heads and tails, I guess you'd call. But interestingly, like, I think there's 2 from the female that had mated the furthest back, which was that short video I put up a while ago. She's got some fish there that are virtually fully free swim without any egg left, or very little egg, and that could certainly go straight to a tank, but some that are just still a tiny step behind. So that's quite interesting, the variation in development just from the one female. So maybe in the wild they might spit a few out along the way that are ready, and I've just never noticed that before in my situation. Rounding out, which it's always nice when you get multiple results from a tank, we got a pair of common bristlenose in that tank, and when I tapped on the tunnel, out came a decent little number of baby catfish, which is good. I haven't had many bristlenose for a while, so pleased to get some of them. I've got some fry boxes on the go around the room, and I love to use baby bristles because they're less likely to kind of glomp down on a sleeping cichlid fry during the night, and they help keep those those boxes clean. So this is an example of what I would call polyculture. That's an aquaculture term where you're getting multiple species out of the one culture vessel. Pretty cool, I think, to probably be looking at, I'd say we're over a couple of hundred fish out of this one 240 odd litre tank, and 3 different species, and 50 bristles, probably 80 hongi, I guess, in total, and God knows what that is. That could be 120, it could be 140. So not a bad hour's work there. Back to it. Alright folks, I'm back again. I've been a bit disjointed in this video. I like to try and do it all in one take, one realistic sort of walk around my room. It's now legitimately Sunday night. I've just had dinner after watching Geelong beat the Swans, so I'm happy about that. That's the tank that I left off on Friday, where I was doing some work. It's had a couple of days to settle in after the big pull down. The fish look hungry and happy and healthy, and that's all good. This week was a heavy week for me at my day job. I did do some work earlier in the week, part of which was finally getting into this tank. This I guess I would describe as a reset. This was a hodgepodge of fish that were no real show of breeding anytime soon, but had kind of been collectively thrown together to grow out. In here we have some young Reganochromis caliurus, some beautiful white calvus, some alto calvus chaticas from Kev. There's 4 fish in here, and there's certainly been some positive signs that the big one likes 2 out of the other 4. So hopefully we could have a trio there. I've also got a few Lampologus onatopinus kicking around in here. And what I've done is I've tried to clear out what was some iceberg electric blues, although I think we've left one behind here unfortunately, so I have to get that out now. Although I'm not totally sure that that's a good electric blue, if it even is. What I desperately want to get to in this tank, and I've picked this tank based on the what I would call the sort of gentle lower third, I suppose, in terms of fish that will kind of inhabit the bottom of the tank without necessarily bombing the crap out of those fish above. What I have to work with and desperately want to get producing is some beautiful blue orchid peacocks, which we'll try and find in here. So we've got a really nice example right there of a young Alonocara candense, or Candy Island. This fish is pretty hard to find in Australia, I believe, at this level of quality. And these are some fish, once again, that survived my Christmas fiasco. So I've got a beautiful male here. I know I've got at least a sub or 2 there. There's about 6 juvenile fish, and I've recently received a big old breeder female from my mate Bill in Melbourne. She's a bit old and banged up looking, but that doesn't matter because eggs are eggs, and pirate babies aren't born with hooks for hands and wooden legs. So we know that as long as genetically she's pretty good, we can still produce some good babies out of her. So that's something I wanted to get to this week, but didn't quite. While I was doing that job earlier in the week, I had the most amazing sort of heebie-jeebie moment where I looked down the row here for whatever reason. and within a couple of seconds of looking, there was water pissing everywhere onto the ground. And what happened was basically what we call a seam letting go in the trade. This tank on the left here, which we've looked at as recently as last week, I think, Chalanochromis Pritchardi breeding tank, the front bottom seam let go, no glass is broken, but this tank literally drained in about, I'd say, 4 minutes down to that 15 mil, 20 centimetres, that's 20 mil, that's 2 centimetres that's left of water. The pressure on that glass is pretty amazing. So as soon as that silicon let go, that bottom glass bowed out, a heap of water went on the floor. I was able to sort of run up and turn get the drainage tap open to help drain that water away quickly. We've got all our habitat now sitting in a bloody tub there, and I'm waiting on trying to source some glass rod so I can do a quick repair on that tank. So it was just bizarre. I've had this room for nearly 20 years now, and I've had plenty of tanks leak and let go, as we call. First time I've ever seen it in real time, and it was pretty eerie feeling to just look up and see it all happen. We've done some those little bristlenose babies that I talked about the other day. I've now popped a couple in with my baby killifish in this box, so that I can start dumping a little bit more dry food in here whilst I'm trying to hatch out baby brine. That's just very difficult for me to get into the form of a habit, so I'm raising these fish primarily on some dry foods at the various size gradings that will get it done. They're looking really good and bright, active. They certainly hit the dry food as happily as they do the baby brine, and we've still got some decent numbers in there, so that's a project that's real exciting. And the next challenge now is to kind of find a tank where I'm going to go next. Along here we did some work on those Bertoni that I mentioned a while ago, and the macrops. We've had a good result this week. We've pulled some macros babies, and I stripped, I think, 3 or 4 of the Bertonis in the end. I'll try and get some film of them in the little Zis box here. They're quite a tiny little baby, but we've got I think 3 females had fish that were swimming size, as in fully formed and ready to free swim. Certainly a tiny little fish, and maybe 10 to a dozen per female at this size. And we've got some egg tumbles around the back to review as well. So I'd say I've got 50 little Astarto tilapia Bertoni coming up, and we got 2 mouthfuls on the macrops wherever they sit, which was nice. That probably is going to be 50 odd fry, and didn't get a result out of the Lawanda peacocks at this time, but that's okay. I'm not totally sure that this tank's a little bit hectic for them just at the minute. I've only got a pair of adults. We've got a nice boy, doesn't want to be filmed. We've got some juveniles, and the female is probably still trying to catch up, and we're just waiting on the 9 or 10 juveniles that I've got in here to make their way through and become active breeders in the colony. We'll skate around the back here, have a quick review of some work I did around on this side. I have a tumbler here. This is 1 mouthful of macrops. So at the time I put them in there, about 5 days ago, these were what we'd probably call head and tails, and they're starting to lengthen out now and become more like bigger fishies. I did some solid water changing along this row. Again, I think I filmed these peacocks before, but I've water changed again just because they're big fish in small tanks, and water quality is important to maintain. I've got a lot of this is the previous sort of batch of blue otters and hongies, so what I talked about a few minutes ago at the beginning of the video was this week's harvest. This is the harvesting from, I don't know, last time, 6 weeks ago, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. Plenty of blue otters in there. I did let out those little hongies that were in the blue tub onto the bottom of this tank, so hopefully they're still down there and kicking along. This tumbler here, sorry, I'll try and get myself sorted where I get locked onto it. These are these are the silver streak ventralis from a week or so back, and it's pretty bizarre because the bottom disc in this egg tumbler is kind of hanging on one side and kind of bumping, but the eggs themselves look to be good colour and still developing, so that's nice. Done a water change on this metric little shit ton of Venustus babies. That was a couple of mouthfuls from a few 5 weeks or so ago. I've released the little Zis box of Malawi barracuda fry in here. I've got no hope of seeing them now, but hopefully on the footage they'll come through. I think they'll be a candidate to grow out together. They're certainly looking hungry and happy and healthy. We did a couple more water changes along here. I've cleaned up a tank full of Ornata pinus breeders, Lamprologus ornata pinus. They're a nice shelly. We got a small number of fry out of there, sort of 15 or so, which are tucked away for grow out. Did some work on this tank, which was a bit of a mosh once again. These are some Lamprologus Calurus Megaras, and I really need to look at trying to pick out a pair or a trio to put into a smaller tank. They're going fine in here, they're just not going to breed anytime soon under that circumstance. And we'll just round out, I think, this week with some more tumblers. This is the Batoni that I mentioned around the back. This is the one mouthful of eggs that was a bit behind the other 3 fish, so nowhere near free swim. We've just got some little legs tumbling away there. This is some the blue neon peacocks that we've spoken about previously. I did also clean up my Savorii tank, pulled out a few babies in there, so they're kind of re-establishing. The secondary female seems to always be sitting up in the mid-water there, but it never looks to be getting too way out of hand, so we'll keep riding that one out. And this giant mosh is the what was that white tub of eggs on the sink earlier, the blue otter, a couple of big clutches, so we've got quite a good haul there coming along. Big number of fish. So despite my limited contact time out here, it's been a good week. We've bred some fish. We've had a setback with a leaky tank, but at least I was here to rescue the breeders this time and not find them all dried up on the bottom. So that's pretty cool. Okie dokie, I think that's enough of my gas bagging again. I don't think I've got anything good to show you from this point, so I'll wrap up here. I'll go inside and dump this into the wonders of my laptop, and we'll try and get this edited up and out tonight. Thank you very much. See you next Sunday night. Bye for now.